right, everyone. Welcome to our latest episode of Blogger Union Radio. Today, we are going to be talking about WordPress website security and what do you do when Google tells you, hey, your website got hacked. So, my name is Paola Mendez, and I am the founder of the Blogger Union. The Blogger Union is a network of blogger communities dedicated to growing our members' brands and incomes through meetups, workshops, and brand collaborations. If you would like to receive notifications about local meetups in your city or brand collaborations, you should register at thebloggerunion.com. Just go there and click Become a Member. And it's super easy, it's completely free. And if you like to check out my personal blog, it's Coral Gables Love. And the website is coralgableslove.com. Our speaker today is Joanna Ali. She runs the blog So Very Jo. She is a super talented DIY blogger and she sews the most amazing outfits.
Thank you.
And we're so excited to have you here today, Jo. Welcome.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here with you guys today.
Awesome. Well, before we get started, would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I live in South Florida. I am a transplant, as they say. I'm from Massachusetts originally. So I've been blogging now since 2016. And I blog about sewing. I share my outfits that I make. I also share any sewing tips that I learn along the way. And I dabble in some DIY as well. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, wonderful. So if you are interested in learning how to sew like I am, you should definitely follow Jo. So we're going to just talk about the story of what happened to Jo and her website. And she's going to tell us a little bit about how she found out and what she did to fix it. And then after we're done with the discussion, if you guys have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat and I will make sure to address all of your questions at the end to see if we can have answers for you guys in terms of website security. So let's start talking about what happened, Jo. How did you find out that your blog was hacked?
Okay, so honestly, it was kind of coincidental. So when I first started my blog, I'm a total DIY girl. I may not know what to do or how to do it, but I am amazing at Google. And so I Google everything. And one of the blogs that I originally read when I first started blogging talked about registering with Webmaster Tools and everything Google related. So back then it was called Webmaster Tools. Now it's called Google Search Console. So what I did was I linked my site to them, and it's a really robust tool that shows you traffic and who's coming to your site, where they might be coming from. It just has a lot of information in there. So the way that I found out was I registered my site, So Very Jo, with HTTPS and then just HTTP, which I must have read to do somewhere because I would not have known to do that myself. And luckily I did. So I like to go in there occasionally and see where my traffic is coming from. It shows you what your highest ranking posts might be. And it was about June. I went in there and I saw all this traffic. And I said, oh, yay, you would think. And then I noticed that I would see links that said, so it looked like I published these things. So it said So Very Jo / and then it had a name of whatever post it was. And I remember thinking, I didn't write that. Like, it wasn't anything that I, like the blog post that I had created, it was not familiar to me. But initially I thought, well, maybe this is where sites are linking to me, which is normally a good thing. Well, I left it alone because I didn't know what I was doing. And then this month, I went in and I received a notification from Google saying, hey, your site has been hacked. And I went into panic mode. I was
Oh
like,
my
oh
God.
my.
That is the worst feeling
Yeah.
when you get that, when you realize, oh my God, you've been hacked. Because believe it or not, the Blogger Union has also been hacked. So,
Oh,
so we were hacked years and years ago, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the future.
yeah, I want to
But
know.
that what is crazy is that, they hack you and you go about your day and you don't even know that you have been hacked, and that is really scary. And then it kind of, if you're not on top of your website security, and then if Google finds out before you, then they put you on a blacklist that your website has been hacked to protect the Google users from getting their information stolen or getting infected with viruses and stuff. So they won't send people to your website to
Right.
protect them. So okay, so you found out from Google. Oh my God! And so what did you do?
So I panicked. This was like at 10 o'clock at night when I saw this. I must have been up until like 2 in the morning trying to figure out, oh my God, what am I gonna do? So um and what Google does as well. So they'll tell you, they'll give you some information and they'll help you. They'll give you links as to, hey, this is a bad page on your site. Take a look at it. And then it also will tell you what kind of hack it is, if you will. So it said, I believe it was like, it said that I was having like some site injection, URL injection. That's what it said. So of course, I went to Google to find out exactly what that meant. And it was just what I saw. So what they were doing is taking my site and just creating links. And then these links were redirecting people to like spammy sites, basically. So what they do is it's called malware. And so they'll redirect people. If they click on this link from wherever they're getting it from, they redirect people to like supposedly like SEO sites, because I saw one, but it's all just spam. So then after I found out what that meant, I started to try and figure out what plugin I would be using to try and fix this issue. So the one that I ended up going with is called MildCare. And so basically I just read reviews. There are tons and tons of different plugins that you can choose one. You don't necessarily have to use this one. This is just the one that worked for me, thank goodness. And so basically I purchased the Pro because if you just do, I was reading the reviews after the fact. People were upset because they offer a free version, but really the free version just runs a scan and says, yeah, you've been infected. So when you purchase the Pro, I found out that I actually had 34 pages that had been infected. It showed me which they were, and then I scanned it and it cleared it up. And then luckily, so after I got all of that done, I went back to Google, to the Google Search Console, because once you've cleared up your issue, then Google will recheck and make sure that everything is good. And I thought it says that it could take up to weeks to do. And I'm like, oh my goodness, because if you had searched for my site name, it would it would say this site has been hacked.
I know.
It did. It was so bad. I'm like, oh my goodness. And luckily, for me, I do have merch that I sell some t-shirts, but I do that through a third party. So I don't have people's information. They're not entering in their credit card information on my site. Thank goodness that was all handled by a third party. So everyone really was fine. Um, so then I went back to Google and I told them, okay, everything is fine. And luckily, the very next day, they came back and said, "Okay, you're all clear," and they removed the site has been hacked from my search results.
Yay, Joe! That is amazing. And I think what is great is that you found a tool that cleaned up your site that was affordable because
Yeah.
and that your solution, the way they hacked you, was something that could have been fixed with a tool at that level. Because
Yes.
there's different ways your website can be hacked, and SQL injection, the one that you got, can be fixed that way. So that's wonderful. So I shared a link to that tool on the chat if you guys want to check it out. It's mildcare.com, and it has the link right there. And what is important to know is that once you get hacked, you are more likely to get hacked if you just like fix it and you don't have now security
Yeah.
going on. So be, before you get hacked, you can just go about your business and run your website and not worry about having a security plugin like fortifying your website. But once you get hacked, they are going to continue to try to get into your website. So you have to now invest in security and pay for that. So can you tell us a little bit of how much they charge, this plugin that you found charges, or what's the
The
cost?
the plugin that I got is $99 for the year. And from what I've found, the majority of the paid plugins are about $100 a year. And um it- honestly, as I was saying before, I wish I had done this. I mean, hindsight is is 2020. So if like think everybody should have some sort of security measure set up on your site and not have the mentality of I'm so small that who's going to want to hack me. But as Paula was saying, like they do go after the low hanging fruit, and here I was like very vulnerable. And it is so true that they will try. They will try. Like I can see this tool will show me it's not just security now. So it has a firewall, it protects my site. If I wanted to, I could do backups through the plugin, but I have other means to do backups on my site. So I'm not utilizing that. But I can also see who's trying to log into my site, how they're trying, like if they're actually trying to hack my site or if they're trying to log into my WordPress console. And it is unbelievable to see the amount of tries that these people do. It really is insane. And they'll try over and over and over and over again, like hundreds of times. And the thing with this is that it blocks them totally. But what you can try to do this manually, which I was researching, that you could find out what the links are and try to delete them and so on. But there are just so many that it's just easier to have a plugin that takes care of this for you. And
Well, actually, let me interject here a second,
okay,
because a lot of people will give you advice in terms of like, oh, maybe if you roll up your sleeves, you'll be able to fix this issue yourself. But I highly recommend against it unless you are someone who is a professional in terms of web security, because you could not know exactly what you're doing and follow the step-by-step instructions of some blog posts and think that you have fixed your issue. But if they went in there and they changed your code some way that you don't know, they will always have that little door into your website to come back and keep hacking you and messing with your website. So I don't recommend once you get hacked trying to fix it on your own.
yeah,
Unfortunately, once you get hacked, it's the time to definitely invest in some type of security. And there's lots of options out there. I've used SiteLocked in the past, and I was really happy with the service that they were providing. Joe is happy with MildCare. Also, if you invest a little more in your hosting, like because when we get started, we are just getting started and we don't want to invest as much because we're testing out the waters. We want to see if this works for us. What, if do we even like blogging? But once you're invested and you have years of content on your website and you have an audience and you're monetizing your blog and brand, it's definitely worth investing on security. Maybe changing your hosting to a hosting that's more managed. They take care of your updating all your plugins, making sure your website is all up to date. Because that's usually when you end up leaving your website to be vulnerable to getting hacked. They usually go in through anything that is out of date, that has a little vulnerability, and that's how they get in. So if you don't update a plugin and maybe that plugin has a vulnerability, they'll use that to hack your website. So if you don't, another option instead of just investing in security is investing in hosting, in a hosting plan that will manage your website on the back end. So they'll do all the updating, they'll track, and those usually include security as well. They're a little more expensive because they give all of these added features, but it does give you peace of mind, which I think is huge. And here Jasmine in the chat is sharing that she uses a bunch of free plugins that can help you prevent getting hacked, including, and she listed some. She said WordFence, WordPress Defender, Hide Login, and Google Authenticator. So yes, you can definitely have all of these free ones, and then if for some reason you still do get hacked, I think the solution is definitely investing like Joe did. And I think that's so cool that you had connected to Google Search Console, so that Google could tell you. So
That
that's another lesson
saved
learned,
me.
right? Make sure.
That's what saved me, really. And like I said, it was totally coincidental, but that's what saved me. Or else I would have just thrown money at the I mean, I purchased the plugin instead of trying to research free ones. But at that point, I'm like, I need to get my site fixed. I don't want people to search for me and say, oh my God, your site's been hacked, and I lose total credibility at that point. So
Absolutely.
I kind of grabbed something just to get get it fixed, but it did work out for me. Thank goodness.
Yay! I'm so glad to hear that your website is back up and running. And when it happened to us at the Blogger Union, um, it was a long time ago. I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. And we also had to invest in, at that point, we invested in a site lock. And then our site is much larger. So we had to change hosting to a different hosting provider, which is more expensive, but they offer all of these services. And it's such a nice peace of mind not to have to worry about like, oh, my site's down, and like having to stand on hold with like a smaller, when you have hosting that's shared, like in a company like Bluehost, like you're going to
That's who
stay
I
on the
have.
phone on customer service for like hours to hear, to be able to reach
They're actually
someone.
pretty good
Really? Because
so
I
far. So
moved
far.
away from them because um, that had
You had
happened exactly
issues. Oh,
when I had issues with the website. I'd call and there was like hours wait time. I was like, oh. So I'm
wow.
glad they fixed that. But that's great to know, Joe. I'm so glad to hear. Do you have any other lessons learned? But before we get into that, if you guys have any questions about website security or anything about your own websites, feel free to add them in the chat, and we'll share our experience regarding your questions.
Well, I learned from what you just said. I don't know, in my head I'm always like, no, I'd rather update the plugins myself, but based on what you just said, I'm going to set them up to automatically update because I'm not always on top of them. I don't log into my WordPress console every single day. So I will set that up.
Right.
To have them auto update.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's a two-edged sword, right? Because if you set your plugins to auto update, and you're not on top of them, the problem is sometimes you have a plugin that when you update it, it breaks your website.
Mm-hmm.
Has that happened to you before?
It did. That's I that's probably why I switched from auto updating. but I call, and it's funny that you should say that about Bluehost. Hopefully I will continue to have a good experience. But anytime that I've had issues with my website, I call them right away and they're able to figure it out. Because they do have an error log that you can go into, but I'm not a developer. So I don't know what I'm
Mm,
looking at.
right, exactly.
It's all code in there. So normally they're able to figure out. I've had it happen twice since 2016 where a plugin has updated and like totally messed up my website. Like it won't come up, or you get an error message, and I'm like, ah, and I call them right away, and they look at it and they're like, oh, it's this plugin. I'll disable it, and then as soon as they do, I'm good. Um, One thing that I have, so lessons learned is obviously have your security on check, like, and purchase it, get the free, do whatever you need to do. Don't ever think that it can't happen to you. It's so cliche, but it can happen to anybody, and I had to learn that the hard way. I would also, I already had this set up, but I would also recommend, if you have a blog, make sure that it's connected to the Google Search Console, so you can see what, I mean, it also helps you identify your traffic, so that you can repeat that if you're having a high ranking blog post, and that's obviously something that people like, so you want to do that again. But it's good just to see where your traffic is coming from. And like I said, that's how I was able to find out that I was hacked, because I had all these crazy links in there. So I would definitely recommend that people do that.
I think that is a great lesson learned. And Google offers a whole suite of tools that really help you run your website and gives you all of this insight into things that you can improve your website. Like part of Search Console, that's specifically in terms of like what keywords are working, how you're showing up on the search and stuff like that. But Google Analytics is also another tool that Google offers that will give you more insight as to where your visitors are coming from, what websites are sending you traffic. Is your traffic coming from social media or from Google search or from your newsletter? So I definitely recommend using all of the Google tools, at least Google Analytics and Search Console. So that are two great lessons learned. Thank you, Joe. Allison is
Yeah.
asking in the chat, does anyone use GoDaddy for malware protection? I do not. I pretty much only use GoDaddy to register domains. I used to, but they're now more expensive. They're selling their domain registrations at about $17 for the basic domain, and you can get them for $12 from Google Domains. So I don't use GoDaddy anymore, not even for that service. So if anyone does use GoDaddy malware protection in the chat, feel free to share your experience with Allison. So I believe that was our last question. Joe, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your experience and what you learned and how you dealt with it. I think so many people, just knowing a couple of tools to, if it happens to them, to know to go search for them, so to fix them, or also learning to maybe invest in those tools before you get hacked.
Yes. I wish I had them in place. It would have never happened. But it was a
Right,
good learning experience.
right. After all that stress, you need some, you needed that vacation you just
Oh
had.
my God. I was really freaking out. I was like, I don't even know what this means. But thank goodness it all worked out. I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been so much worse than it was. So get your security, guys.
So awesome, Joe. Joe, do you have anything upcoming that you would like to promote with our audience or share?
I really don't at this point. Let's see, I'm thinking. No, just you can follow me at So Very Joe on Instagram. I post I hang out on Instagram probably more than I should, but I'm trying to get better at that. It's a hard balance. But you guys can see my makes over on So Very Gel. I recently took a vacation to Atlanta over the weekend, so I'll be posting about that. And my blog, which is safe, is soveryjoe.com.
That's perfect. And also, Joe is going to write a blog post on her website about how the whole hacking thing happened and how she fixed it and stuff like that. So if you want to check that out and like follow her there on her security journey, make sure you
Yes.
check out soveryjoe.com.
I actually discussed this while it was happening. I have a highlight on my Instagram, and I was talking about it in my stories, so you can check that out as well as you can watch me like freak out about the whole thing,
In
and
real
and I was
time.
happy at the end.
Okay, wonderful. So for us, we have more webinars upcoming. If you want to check out what's on our schedule, check out thebloggerunion.eventbrite.com to see our upcoming webinars. I know we will be talking about the different ways to monetize your blog, brand, and audience in a couple of weeks. So check that out. Thank you everyone for joining us as always and for being such an active, engaged audience. I will see you probably next week. Have a nice week, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.